Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hidayam Unimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Abhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptascha Kamari Tarangaramadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Prapanda Brinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, I'm going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, so yesterday we heard about the Mathura Brahmanis, the highly qualified wives of the Mathura Brahmanas, who had come and brought Krishna all of the food from the sacrificial offering against their husbands' wishes, against their families' wishes, sons, family members, brothers, husbands. You can't leave the house, don't do this. They did it, they came to Krishna. Krishna was very happy to see them, had a short but happy conversation, but then he told them to go back. And he gave different reasons, but ultimately we heard that because these ladies were so advanced in prema, in deep love of God, but their desire to be with Krishna as beloveds could not happen because they were already married, but married to Brahmanas and outside of Vrindavan. They were not quite spiritually qualified yet, right? And so, because Krishna's mission is twofold, to teach that kind of bhakti, which is completely, absolutely pure and unmotivated, and which is based on simply the love of Krishna without even awareness that he's God, right? Which has what's called Narvat Leela, a human-like appearance. This exists in Vrindavan, where his friends, his parents, his beloveds, nobody knows Krishna's God in Vrindavan. Even Krishna forgets at times. He experiences, and they experience this incredible relationship based on pure love, based on each other's spotless, perfect character and qualities. Selfless reciprocation. So, these Brahmanis, they were within the Varnashram system, living in Mathura. They're, speaking from a worldly position, they were in a higher caste than Krishna. And they were already married, and if Krishna, who was going to go to Mathura soon, later, in a few years, and then preach the alternative principles of Dharma, those principles which lead ultimately to pure bhakti, but which may have gradation. You can find that in Bhagavad Gita, the gradation of bhakti that he teaches to Arjuna in the various chapters, beginning with Varna ashram and doing your duty, and then gradually doing it, understanding you're doing everything for God, and then gradually different levels of detachment until one completely surrenders, right? But in order to teach that, then when he goes to Mathura and Dwarka, there he's in not his original Swayam Bhagavan form that he exhibits only in Vrindavan, but he's in his expansion, his Vasudev Krishna expansion, who comes to establish Dharma and destroy demoniac personalities in the world. That mission which he speaks about in Bhagavad Gita, right? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskatam dharma sangstarpanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I come millennium after millennium to remove demoniac elements from the planet, to protect and nourish my devotees with my pastimes and with my love, and to teach principles of religion. This is why I come. So he was telling them, one of the last verses we read was, for you to remain in my bodily association would certainly not please people in this world, nor would it be the best way for you to increase your love for me. Rather, you should fix your minds on me, and very soon you will achieve me. Right? So 2 considerations. One, how this would affect the understanding of people in general, and what is the best way for you to increase your love for me, these Brahmanis, these wives. Right? Krishna is concerned with both. And so he gives them instruction. It's by hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating upon me, and chanting my names and glories that love for me develops, not by physical proximity. Therefore, go back to your homes. So he's telling them, don't worry, we will associate through your devotional practices. I will be there. I'm there in my name. I'm there when you hear my transcendental glories. I'm there in my deity form. So they agreed. They went back. And so that's where we left off. Sri Shuka Uvacha Ityukta Dvija Patnyasta Yagyavatam Punargata Nachana Suyavastabi Stribir Sataram Aparayan. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, thus instructed, the wives of the Brahmanas returned to the place of sacrifice. The Brahmanas did not find any fault with their wives, and together with them they finished the sacrifice. So the wives were afraid that they would be rejected, and rightly so, because normally in Vedic culture, if a wife does act improperly, leaves home in that way, it's a shame to the entire family, especially Brahminical family. Right? But Krishna is in the heart of all living beings, and he inspired in the heart of those Brahmanas to see no fault in their wives. In fact, we're going to see something else. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the wives of the Brahmanas obeyed Sri Krishna's order and returned to their husbands, whereas the Brajagopis, although ordered by Krishna to go home, remained in the forest to dance with him through the full moon night. Both the Brajagopis and the Brahmanas' wives achieved unalloyed Krishna prema. Right, so that will be in the 29th chapter. This is earlier, this is 23rd chapter. When the gopis are called for Rasa Leela, Krishna gives them very good arguments to return home, and they argue back with him and then don't go. They say that, oh, your instruction is so high class, such good quality instruction, we accept you as our guru. Right? But you are our guru, and even though you have said that we should go and serve our husbands, the duty of the disciple is to first and foremost serve and please their guru. So we're staying here with you and serve you here. And Krishna, delighted by their clever arguments, and their deep love, which would not be thwarted, right? Now, these ladies, they had to go back, but still, the path for their development of full prema is not interrupted. This is the proper way for them in their bodies at their level of eligibility. They will achieve unalloyed Krishna prema. They were already absorbed in prema. They had high class love of God, but somehow it's going to become even higher. Tatraika vidata bhartra bhagavantam jata shrutam hrido paguya vijaho deham karma nubandhanam. One of the ladies who had been forcibly kept back by her husband, one of the ladies had been forcibly kept back by her husband. When she heard the others describe the Supreme Lord Krishna, she embraced him within her heart and gave up her material body, the basis of bondage to material activity. Okay. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. The lady restrained here by her husband was especially devoted to Krishna. She gave up her material body, but she did not give up her spiritual body, which was filled with prema due to her intense love in separation from Krishna. That spiritual body was kept hidden by the Supreme Lord, who manifested himself to her. In that body, which was purely spiritual and invisible to all, she quickly left that place and went to Krishna. After having given up one's husband and other objects of attachment, is it surprising that someone also gives up the material body to meet Krishna? To show the power of Krishna Prema, Krishna's Kripa Shakti. Shakti means potency, right? Kripa means mercy. Sometimes it's said that the Kripa Shakti, the potency of compassion and mercy, is Krishna's highest Shakti, right? Where does that compassion reside? It resides in its personified and sourced most perfectly from Srimati Radhika, right? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that Radhika takes her bath in the morning in the nectar of compassion. She's ornamented by the quality of compassion. And in fact, she is the Adi Guru. She is the one who is most responsible for the deliverance of all fallen souls. The agency for that is Sri Guru. Nityananda Prabhu is a Khanda Guru Tattva, the original principle of Guru, coming from Krishna's first expansion. But that quality of compassion comes from Srimati Radhika herself. She is that embodiment. And in fact, when Krishna came as Mahaprabhu, he shows compassion much more than he did as Krishna or as Krishna and Balaram. They delivered some souls, but when Mahaprabhu came, he was Krishna, but what was he Krishna? He was Krishna covered, infused with the complexion and compassionate moods of Srimati Radhika. And so he's called Patit Pavan. He is the deliverer of everyone, the most compassionate, merciful incarnation who goes and delivers everyone, even those without qualification. So, to show the power of Krishna Prema, Krishna's Kripa Shakti made that one lady, at the time when all the wives went to meet Krishna, give up the material body, which is the cause of one's bondage to material activity, and arrange for her to receive her spiritual body, which is one's connection with pure love of God. Prema Anubandha. Karma Anubandhanam is attachment to the material body and its results. Prema Anubandha is attachment following the qualities and inclinations of pure love. So that's interesting. Krishna may desire that somebody be with him, but it's only by the agency of his Shakti that someone gains entrance into that realm. Right? Remember, we just read about the young Gopi girls who wanted Krishna as their husband, right? And they performed this vrat, this vow for 1 month, praying to Goddess Katyayani, Yogamaya, to grant that Krishna be their husband. But why did Krishna grant that ultimately? Right? Yogamaya didn't grant it. Krishna granted, but why? And how and what agency? On the last day, those young gopis invited Srimati Radhika to come to the ceremony and bless them. And so she was with them when Krishna came. And because she sanctioned it, and her Sakis sanctioned it, therefore Krishna was very pleased and accepted them completely. So here also, when it says Krishna's Kripa Shakti, it means Radhika, her Sakis, her beloveds, her expansions, her agents of mercy, right? So this one wife had such desire and such pure greed that she, even though being held back by her husbands and family, at that place, Krishna personally came and she joined with him in a spiritual body. Like a touchstone, she, this lady, and now endowed with the same Kripa Shakti, transformed the other wives' material bodies into pure spiritual bodies as well. Thus, from that day forward, the Brahmana ladies had no more contact with their husbands. That means contact in the worldly sense, right? They weren't acting like wives and having conjugal connection. Actually, the husbands didn't even touch them. They would just do their duties in the house respectfully, but they had no more sense that even I have a husband. They just do these duties kind of automatically going through their life. In this way, what is impossible for the Kripa Shakti of Krishna? One cannot say whether that one Brahmana lady was superior in her bhakti to the others or not, since there is no indication given in the scripture. But in any case, all of them became perfect by the mercy of Krishna, as described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Kripa Siddha Jagya Patni Vairochani Shukadaya. Those who became perfect by receiving the Lord's mercy, such as the wives of the Brahmanas, the son of Virochana, that's Bali Maharaj, and Shukadev Goswami. Right. Different ways one can receive the mercy of the Lord, right? So they became perfect by that, just by the wish of the Lord. So ultimately, when you're perfect, Siddha, you're Siddha. There's no question of higher or lower, but because of the arrangement of Yogamaya being kept back and not able to attend and be with Krishna like the other ladies, her anxiety and sense of separation reached a peak that theirs did not yet. They met with Krishna. They were sent back, and Krishna said, by separation, then your prema will also reach a peak that will allow you and us to be together. And it happened through the agency of this other wife, their friend, because by the arrangement of the Lord, she wasn't able to go, and so she got that completely spiritual form. It's not so wonderful to imagine that if you think that even in this world, you read so many experiences of people that go to the hospital. They're having an operation. During the operation, they're declared dead, right? All life signs end, right? Even no brain activity. And then maybe 15 minutes later or some miraculous way, they come back and the life signs revive. Then when they speak about their experience, they say, oh, I saw myself on the table, I saw the doctors, I saw that you declared me dead. I was floating outside my body watching everything. Sometimes they go and they meet relatives, friends, angels, agents of God who console them. And they have an experience where all the cares, all the worries, all the woes of this world, nothing matters. They just feel love and they have no attachment or anxiety anymore. They haven't even experienced love of God yet, but they've experienced a state of detachment and welfare by connection with higher beings, greater than anything they'd have experienced in this world. Right? And they don't even want to come back. But they come back, they say, no, you have to finish your work here, you have to do something more, and they come back. So these ladies, they gave up their material bodies completely, but because of the desire to be with Krishna in spirit, in their spiritual forms, and serve him in that way. And they were granted that capacity. Right? The same thing happened to some gopis when Krishna called them for the Rasa Leela. Those gopis whose prem was very high, they had done the Katyani Vrata and other things, or maybe they had come from outside Braj and married into a Gopa family in Braj. Many of them had husbands and children, and so in that body they were not qualified to perform Rasa Leela, having been touched by other men and having children. And so in that stage, they were locked in their house, kept in separation, and in that separation, their anxiety was so great, they also gave up their material body. Krishna came to them personally. And some of them were allowed to run to the Rasa Leela dance at that time in their spiritual form, and a substitute form was kept by Yogamaya, a subtle, a material body that look like them, so that there would be no disturbance in the family. And some of them, Krishna said, no, you can't come now, but in a future night, when we do Rasa Leela again, then you can come, right? So their greed had to grow more and more. So basically, the principle we're hearing about is love is based on the degree of desire, the degree of greed. And when that greed says, I don't want anything else, I'll even give up my material body just to be with Krishna. Krishna, he's attracted to that greed, and arrangement is made. These are extraordinary personalities. So the next verse, Bhagavan api govindas tenai vanena gopakan chatur vedena shayatva svayam chabuje prabhu. Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fed the cowherd boys with the food of 4 varieties. Then the all-powerful Lord himself partook of the preparations. Purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. As Krishna is Bhagavan, the possessor of all powers, in front of him the Brahmana lady gave up her material body. Unseen by others, she met Govinda in her spiritual body, and then experienced unlimited pleasure with her transcendental senses. That is the significance of the word api in this verse. The food, tena eva anena, was inadequate to feed all the cowherd boys, but Almighty Krishna caused all of their bellies to be completely filled. The ka in Gopakan indicates Krishna's merciful attitude toward the boys. Though Krishna had no desire to eat, he also ate to show mercy to the cowherd boys. That is the significance of Svayam Cha, he also. Krishna had no desire to eat because he was feeling remorse at having made the Brahmanas' wives break their vows. So, very subtle transcendental emotions. Anyway, so then the next verse is, but he's merciful to the boys. Why? Because they want to eat with Krishna. They don't want to see Krishna serving all of them and then not eating, right? Oh, sit down, sit down. We might not feel like that. We could sit down in a prasadam hall eating together, and if somebody's serving us, we don't even give a thought. Oh, have you eaten yet? No. Would you like something? No. I'll tell you a story. Oh, it's painful. Now, it's only because it's in the very beginning when Srila Prabhupada was just establishing his place on 26 2nd Avenue. And there was a big festival. I can't remember which festival it was. And he had cooked a large feast for everybody. Right? He did this with his own hand. His disciples were not yet experts. Some of them may have helped chopping this and that, but he cooked everything. And many, many different preparations. He would make samosas and pakoras and sweets and all kinds of amazing things. And so many people were there because they were all becoming attracted to the Swami's food, right? Kitchen religion. This was Srila Prabhupada's secret, making these fantastic Sunday feasts and inviting the public, and they became famous all around the world. To this day, they're famous. This is a very early one. And the devotees, they're eating and eating. They're so happy, right? And then later, Srila Prabhupada comes out of his room. And then they say, "Oh, Prabhupada, the feast was so wonderful." And he goes, "Oh, could I have some?" And it had all been eaten. It was all gone. Nobody had thought to save something for Srila Prabhupada. Perhaps at that time, he didn't have a personal servant. He was just serving everybody. So it didn't occur. That mamata, that connection, had not ripened enough. Later on, of course, nothing like that would have ever happened. But in the early stages, like a little baby, in the early stages of love and relationship with the parents, right? The baby only thinks of, I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat, right? Later, they might become a little more developed, and if their mother or somebody gives them something very nice, they might take some of it and offer it back to them, reciprocal. And this is Krishna's feeling, these cowherd boys, they won't be happy unless I eat with them. We eat together lunch every day. They'll be very unhappy if I don't. And he also didn't have appetite because he's feeling a little remorse, having made the Brahmanis' wives break their vows. Well, I'm not sure what he means by that. Their vow to be with him and sent them back, or their vow to their husband. Either way, he could feel either feeling, or both. Because again, remember, he comes to teach Dharma. So maybe he's having second thoughts. I'm not completely sure on that. So, evam lila naravapur nirlokam anushilayan reme go gopagopinam ramayan rupavakritai. Thus, the Supreme Lord, appearing like a human being to perform his pastimes, imitated the ways of human society. He enjoyed pleasing his cows, cowherd boyfriends, and cowherd girlfriends with his beauty, words, and actions. Appearing like a human being to perform pastimes, imitating the ways of human society. Actually, human society imitates the ways of God, but in a perverted way, right? We are imitating, the Greeks had a idea. The Greeks, their philosophy comes with connection with more ancient cultures, including India. And so some of, even in the more modern stages, of Plato and Aristotle, they had some conception of a spiritual realm, although there's no writing about the reality of it. But they had the details of it, but they had a saying, as above, so below. They understood that this realm was a reflection, imperfect reflection of a higher reality. So this world is a imperfect reflection of the existence, the Sat-Chit Ananda existence in the spiritual realm. And it's imperfect also because the quality of love and affection and enjoyment, rather than being connected directly with God, right? Our sense of being, our sense of purpose, our sense of welfare, our sense of loving exchange, being with God, and then with everybody else, in this realm, because we are covered by subtle and gross bodies, the false ego, ahankara, makes us think that we're the doer, right? We're the enjoyer. And we do and enjoy through this material body and through our subtle mind and intelligence. And everything is self-directed. And self-directed, it becomes very limited. Limited because the material energy can't satisfy the soul. Matter can't satisfy the soul. No matter how much connection you have with matter, it can't touch the soul and give it joy. Like spirit does, right? Like connection with God does. So you'll never be happy, and to whatever extent that you achieve happiness here, ultimately, every lifetime you have to end it. You have to give it up. And even if you think you're completely happy in this realm, you grow old, you die, and then all your friends, all your relatives, all your children, all your wealth, everything is gone. And then you do it again and again and again. There's so many science fiction tropes that are based on that, where people seem to be reliving the same experience or the same life over and over. Twilight Zone, Star Treks, so many science fiction writers, you see that again and again. Trapped in a loop, right? This material world is a loop. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, let me read the verse again. Thus the Supreme Lord, appearing like a human being to perform his pastimes, imitated the ways of human society. He enjoyed pleasing his cows, cowherd boyfriends, and cowherd girlfriends with his beauty, words, and actions. He enjoys that. Remember, it's not one-sided. You know, in this world, people may be very content to just accept service from others, gifts from others. But Krishna is only satisfied when he can make his devotees happy. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in this way, Krishna did not directly enjoy with the wives of the Brahmanas, but he did enjoy with the wives of the cowherd men. This is the intention of this verse. Lila Nara Vapu means that Krishna appeared as a human being to relish his pastimes. Naravapu means human-like form. Lila means pastimes, right? It indicates that because of the predominance of the Lila Shakti, pastime potency, over Krishna's other Shaktis, such as the Saita Sankalpa Shakti, the potency to fulfill his desires, the pastime with the Brahmana's wives did not culminate in direct enjoyment, because it wouldn't have been appropriate for his pastimes in this world, right? It was not appropriate to enjoy with the wives of Brahmanas. The cowherd girls, it's very confidential, very secret, and there are spiritual teachings underneath that are taught to people who are qualified to read and understand Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Enjoying himself with the cows, cowherd men, and gopis, Krishna overwhelmed them with bliss by his form, words, and actions. Gopinam refers to the young gopis rather than the elderly ones with maternal affection because of the time and context of the verse. So he's just talking about the young gopis, not the motherly gopis, right? Implied here is a refutation to the opinion that prior to the rasa dance, Krishna did not enjoy with the young Braja gopis. Shukadeva Goswami indicates Krishna performed many pastimes similar to the rasa dance with the Braja gopis, but these have not been mentioned by me. So not yet, because the rasa dance, it's the culmination and the combination of all his perfect and loving pastimes. So many things goes on in Rasa Leela. But he's still meeting with them during the day, sneaking off, doing Dan Keli, pastimes of taxing, arguing, gambling, joking, water sports, right? So many things are going on. So then what happens? Atanu smritya vipraste anvatapyan kritagrasa yadviveshvarayor yachnam ahanmana vidambayo. The Brahmanas then came to their senses and began to feel great remorse. They thought, we have sinned, for we have denied the request of the two lords of the universe who deceptively appeared as ordinary human beings. Purport: the Brahmanas remembered Krishna constantly and became repentant due to the auspicious presence of their wives. In other words, Krishna had promised the Brahmanas' wives that their husbands would not find fault with them. And one of the reasons is because they now had achieved such an extent of prema, of purity, that it affected their husbands. Right? Just like Kaliya Nag, the serpent, his wives are great devotees as well. And by their mercy, he also became softened. And by getting kicked in the head by Krishna, too. Right, but they came by Krishna's desire, and by the association of their wives, they became repentant. This verse speaks of their repentance. We are offenders because we have ignored the request of the Lord of the universe. What type of Lord was he? We were deceived by Krishna and Balaram, who requested food from us. They were deceived because they had no love. They were like smartas, so-called orthodox brahmanas who were doing their yajna only for worldly results. Elevation of the heavenly planets, mystic powers, wealth in this realm. So next verse, Drishtastrinam Bhagavati Krishne Bhaktim Alokikim Atmanam Chatayahinam Anutapta Vyagarhayan, taking note of their wives' pure transcendental devotion to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and seeing their own lack of devotion, the Brahmanas felt most sorrowful and began to condemn themselves. Purport: though the women were their wives, the Brahmanas now regarded them as their gurus, and they criticized themselves for their own lack of devotion. The Krishna Bhakti, pure devotion to Krishna of their wives, was impossible to see in ordinary society. So here, once again, we see that the dealings of devotees in pure devotional communities transcends rules and regulations of varnashram. These brahmanas were in the topmost level of society and normally would expect their wives to be their servants, assistants, right? Performing the worldly household duties, etc. But now their wives have become their gurus because of their wives' exalted devotional position. So now the Brahmanas say, next verse, to hell with our threefold birth, our vow of celibacy, and our extensive learning. To hell with our aristocratic background and our expertise in the rituals of sacrifice. These are all condemned because we were inimical to the transcendental personality of Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the Brahmins said, our three births, and he lists those three kinds of births: physical birth, Brahminical initiation, and initiation into the performance of Vedic sacrifice, that special training. These are all useless. Our vow of celibacy is useless. And our expertise in daily and occasional duties, nitya and naimittika kriya, is all useless because we were inimical to Sri Krishna. So in other words, they had every reason to be proud of their accomplishments and their status in society, high birth, educated, so many qualifications, but they say it's all useless because it made us so proud we could not recognize the Lord and go to serve him as our wives did. And then they say, the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord certainly bewilders even the great mystics. What to speak of us? As Brahmanas, we are supposed to be the spiritual masters of all classes of men. Yet we have been bewildered about our own real interest. We're supposed to be the teachers, but because we don't know about God, we have no qualification. The purport, the Brahmanas said, if the yogis who practice Ashtanga Yoga also become bewildered, what can be said of us, who are involved in so much karma? Although we are the spiritual masters of others, Maya has bewildered us about the real goal of our lives. Srila Prabhupada used to always say, Brahmana, real Brahman means one who knows Brahman, right? Spiritual truth, spiritual reality. And then they say, Aho pashyata narinam api krishne jagat garo duranta bhavam yo vidyan murityu pashan griha bidan. Just see the unlimited love these women have developed for Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe. This love has broken for them the very bonds of death, their attachment to family life. Right. Attachment to family life. This will keep us coming back. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the Brahmins spoke and said, as their husbands or fathers-in-law, we are superficially the gurus or teachers of these women. But these women have attained perfection in Krishna consciousness, whereas we have fallen in the blind well of ignorance. That is expressed in this verse. The Brahmanas said, these women possess a love for Krishna which is impossible for us to understand. Just see the prem that they are showing towards Krishna. The syllable ha and ho, which generally means joy, surprise, ho, right, indicates that upon returning home, the ladies displayed ecstatic symptoms, such as trembling, shedding tears, hairs standing on end, and calling out in choked voices, O pleasure of my life, O Krishna. The Brahmanas continued. So they saw this. Just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was an impersonalist. And yet when he saw Mahaprabhu's symptoms, he realized that these are symptoms which demonstrate a level of spiritual perfection which I have never imagined any human being could have. They're explained in the scripture, but we've never seen anything like it. Prakasananda Saraswati, also seeing Mahaprabhu in that way, right? Devananda Pandit, although he had committed offense to Srivas Thakur, later when he saw, what name? Begins with a V, that would dance for 72 hours straight, Mahaprabhu's associate. Oh, what's his name? Oh, it'll come to me as I'm speaking. Anyway, became moved and devoted and wanted to serve him. So they're seeing this, and the Brahmins continued. But it is not fitting for a woman to love anyone other than her husband. Though women should regard their husbands as guru, what can one say when the Supreme Lord, who is Jagat Guru, the universal teacher and spiritual master, appears directly before them? They have developed their love for their guru alone, right? They've developed their love for the guru of the universe, Krishna, and now don't have even a trace of attachment for home, husband, children, and so forth. As we no longer see those attachments in them, they are our gurus. From that day on, the husbands accepted those ladies as their worshipable spiritual masters and no longer thought of them as their wives or property. Okay. So then, lost my thing. Now, next verse, they continue speaking. These women have never undergone the purificatory rites of the twice-born classes, nor have they lived as brahmacharis in the ashram of a spiritual master, nor have they executed austerities, speculated on the nature of the self, followed the formalities of cleanliness, or engaged in pious rituals. Nevertheless, they have firm devotion for Lord Krishna, who is the supreme master of all masters of mystic power. We, on the other hand, have no such devotion for the Lord, although we have executed all these processes. So, clear distinction. What's the most important thing? Expertise in worldly duties and education, because they're talking about what Brahmins are meant to be educated in, what degrees they have, right? They had Brahminical initiation and executed austerities. Nowadays, people get PhDs and things like that, by which they're supposed to be qualified and elevated in society. But without devotion to Krishna, what's the use of any of it, right? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the Brahmanas said, we can't understand how our wives have developed such extraordinary love for Krishna. That is the intention of this verse. Because Brahmanas, if you read the Jaiva Dharma in the 6th chapter, there's a debate, because the Orthodox Brahmins of Navadvip could not understand the exalted position of the Vaishnavas. And they could not understand the Vaishnavas giving respect and honor to people who are even outside the Varnashram system, like the Muslim descendants of Chankazi, who are great devotees. Even though they were externally Muslims, they're great devotees. And there's a debate about Vaishnavata versus worldly qualification. And this same point is made. The Brahmanas continued, they did not perform Upanayana Samskar. They did not live as brahmacharis in the Guru's ashram, or perform austerities, meditate on the soul, or execute auspicious rites. The cause of their love is none other than Krishna, the supreme master of all masters of mystic power. The cause of their wives' loving devotion was hearing about the form, qualities, and activities of Krishna from the flower ladies and other women of Braj. That not even from other Brahmins and high-class gurus. They heard from other ladies who had flower sellers, right? Who had love, like the fruit seller lady, right? But the Brahmanas did not mention this because they were unaware of it. This is Shukadeva Goswami's intention. And so they go on. Indeed, infatuated as we are with our household affairs, we have deviated completely from the real aim of life. But now just see how the Lord, through the words of these simple cowherd boys, has reminded us of the ultimate destination of all true transcendentalists. Oh, fie on us. The cowherd boys came and we neglected their statements and requests. Otherwise, why would the Supreme Controller, whose every desire is already fulfilled, and who is the master of liberation and all other transcendental benedictions, enact this pretense with us, who are always to be controlled by him? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that they say, as Krishna is self-satisfied and has attained fulfillment in every possible desire, what does he need from us? It cannot be anything else but an expression of his causeless mercy. By sending his friends to humbly beg food from us, he exposed our foolish arrogance. Right. So, when Guru sends his disciples out, when the devotees of Krishna go begging, it's not that they require anything. Krishna will provide everything somehow or other, but it's to engage others, give them some connection. Right? Next thing they say is hoping for the touch of his lotus feet. The goddess of fortune perpetually worships him alone, leaving aside all others and renouncing her pride and fickleness. That he begs is certainly astonishing to everyone. Right? And then they say, all aspects of sacrifice, the auspicious place and time, the various items of paraphernalia, the Vedic hymns, the prescribed rituals, the priests and sacrificial fires, the demigods, the patron of the sacrifice, the sacrificial offering, and the pious results obtained are all simply manifestations of his opulences. Yet, even though we had heard that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, the Lord of all mystic controllers, had taken birth in the Yadu dynasty, we were so foolish that we could not recognize Sri Krishna to be none other than him. He took birth in our own town, and we heard that he may have been taken to Vrindavan, but we the idea of him being born to Jashoda was very secret to anyone outside of Braj. In Braj, everybody knew that's our Krishna. But everybody in Mathura that had qualification knew that Vasudeva had taken Krishna to Vrindavan, and Kamsa knew. He kept trying to kill him, but he couldn't. So why is all this being said? Because these are high-class educated persons, and they are saying that our wives have done no wrong. They're showing there was no fault in what our wives have done because they have surrendered and sacrificed everything to the Supreme Lord himself. Everything that we're doing is meant for his satisfaction anyway. He doesn't need anything we do. Anything we do is insignificant. He's the Lord of unlimited universes. What does he need with our puny sacrifice? But if we're fortunate, we develop love and offer that. Our wives offered that, which is far more valuable than anything we could ever imagine. So then they say, let us offer obeisance unto Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His intelligence is never bewildered, whereas we, confused by his power of illusion, are simply wandering about on the paths of fruitive work. We were bewildered by Lord Krishna's illusory potency, and thus could not understand his influences as the original personality of Godhead. Now we hope he will kindly forgive our offense. Thus, reflecting on the sin they had committed by neglecting Lord Krishna, they became very eager to see him. But, being afraid of King Kamsa, they dared not go to Braj. That's the last verse. Their wives, they didn't care. They gave up everything. But the Brahmanas, even though, all right, now we know Krishna's God, but we're still afraid of King Kamsa. We don't even have that faith that even though we said it and we see it in our wives, we don't have the faith that Krishna will protect us from King Kamsa, or that if he doesn't protect us, so what? As long as we show devotion to him. And Vishwanath Chakravarti concludes this chapter by saying, after realizing their offense against Krishna and finally appreciating his almighty position, why did the Brahmanas not just rush to Braj and surrender at the lotus feet of the Lord? This verse answers. At that moment, the Brahmanas were bewildered by grief and guilt and were not in agreement as to the proper course of action. Thus, they did not go to the Ashok Grove to meet Sri Krishna. And even by the end of the day, although they were all in agreement, they still could not go to Braj. The word cha indicates they tried to move but could not. Suddenly, at the same time, right, they all felt the presence of Kamsa. The Brahmanas were afraid that Kamsa would certainly kill them if his spies reported that they had gone to Krishna. When I think of this, I think of those Russian devotees in the early days where communism was so strictly established in Russia and no religious practices allowed. And the devotees, if they were caught, they would be put in prison and tortured. And many were kept in extraordinary, horrible condition for years. They would go in the forest and meet secretly. They would handwrite books and share them with each other. They underwent such austerity, and even at the threat of torture and death. How glorious, yeah. The fear of being killed, however, did not create any obstacle for their wives. Being absorbed in ecstatic Krishna consciousness, the Brahmanas' wives immediately went to Krishna, just as the gopis, simply to dance with the Lord, traveled in the dead of night through a forest full of ferocious animals. It should be understood that because the Brahmanas were not on such an advanced platform of Krishna consciousness, the shadow of fear in their minds kept them from seeing Krishna face to face. They didn't have a very high level of realization yet, right? But they will. They're on their way. They have pure devotees as wives. They live in Mathura. Krishna's going to come to Mathura in a few years. So, step by step. So we'll stop here. Ooh, it's a long class. All right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to all the assembled devotees, all glories to the wives of the Mathura Brahmanis. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.